Okay, so here we are looking at my 1977 Dodge M880, and I've decided to do an HEI conversion on this truck. And when I do that, I'm going to make a video of it so I have future reference in case if I forget what I did. And also maybe this video may help someone else decide on what they want to do with their project. I'm not the first person to do this type of a conversion. This has been done many times before by other people, and there's more than one way of doing it. This is how I decided to do my project. I'm going to do away with the original electronic distributor and replace it with a one-wire hookup HEI distributor with an integrated HEI module. When we do that, we'll have to eliminate this stock coil and go with an E-core type coil. And then wire everything up and in. I've decided to go ahead and add a relay in here to power the distributor. We'll get into that a little more later, but right now I just wanted to make a video documenting what everything looks like before. You got the ballast resistor. We'll be doing away with that. The electronic, the ECM module, we'll be doing away with that. And go from there. Now, as you guys can clearly see, I've made some other modifications to this truck. And this modification here should be pretty much straightforward. So, without any further delay, let's get started. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. This here are all the parts that I'm gathering together for my HEI conversion on my 1977 Dodge M880, which, as you guys know by now, has the 318 engine in it. This here is a brand new, it's marketed as a one-wire distributor conversion. It comes with the HEI module already installed in the distributor. This particular unit I got off of Skip White. It seems to be very well constructed. Just looking it over, I have no reason to suspect anything's wrong or chintzy with it at all. It all looks halfway decent. The distributor cap all looks good. It's got the brass contacts. The item number coming from Skip White on the box is JM6713R. Now, when you look at that number, you're going to notice that there are other manufacturers, or I should say other companies out there that are selling pretty much this exact same distributor, the same item number. The reason why I decided to go with Skip White is because on Skip White's eBay site for this particular distributor, he was warranting it for lifetime. Lifetime warranty, street or strip use. So I figured, well, I'm going to go with that guy. So went with Skip White. Now, before I went and ordered this coil, I emailed Skip White and says, hey, what kind of coils work best with this? Because you cannot use your stock Dodge coil when you do this upgrade. He emailed me back and says, well, our coils work the best. Well, yeah, sure they do. You go to his website, for his actual store, and there's no coils listed. None at all. But he did mention in that email that it was the 2041D coil that he had that he recommended for this unit. So okay, you know, I'm on eBay and I'm surfing and shopping and blah blah blah, and I come across this Speedmaster, and this Speedmaster was advertised as a Pro Comp PC91, and it was advertised as 60,000 volts max, a turn ratio of 100 to 1, secondary resistance of 3.8 thousand ohms, primary resistance of 0.45 ohms. And I thought, well, you know, yeah, sure, that'll work. So I ordered it. Got it in, you know, from Speedmaster. This is the box that came in. And the numbers on the box, lo and behold, say PC 2041D. Now that's the same number that Skip White told me to use with this distributor. Now I do not know, I honestly cannot tell you guys what the difference is between a PC91 and a PC2041D. I would assume that, you know, ProComp just makes these coils here for a bunch of different companies, and maybe it's got something to do with their logistics or whatnot, or why there's different numbers. I'm not going to get all worked up about it. Skip White told me use the 2041D. I've had other guys say that the PC91s are the way to go, so I ordered a PC91. It comes in the mail, and you know, even on the billing, under the description, it's got universal PC91, 12 volt high output, external male, E-core ignition coil red. So, okay, whatever. Call it what you want. I'm confident, you know, that the specs are going to be correct, you know, of what they advertised. And I'm confident that this coil is going to fit my needs. I'm not going to be drag racing my 1977 pickup truck. I use it for plowing. I'm sure that coil is going to work out just fine for me. Now, when you go to the male cap, you got to go with plug wires that will accept the male cap. Some of the guys I talk to on other forums say, well, you got to go with at least an 8mm wire, and you got, you know, you should go with a spiral round wire. Okay, yeah, well, here we go. These plug wires I got off of eBay, they come from Summit Racing. And they are, I'll read them off for you. It says Summit Street and Strip, made in USA, 8mm silicone, and these are a spiral round wire. For future reference, the part number on the box is SUM 867815R. I looked these over. The quality looks good. I see nothing obvious. I'm sure these are going to work out for my, you know, application. The only thing I see that I, you know, thought was a little odd was the actual length of the coil wire itself, which is 38 inches. These wires, when I ordered them and I got online and started looking them up, I simply typed in 1992 W150 spark plug wires, which you guys know. You know my application's a 318 5.2 liter. This is one of the options that popped up, and I decided to go with it. No big deal. I'm sure this is going to work out just fine for my application. Now, some people who have done this mod in the past before me, I'm not the guy blazing trails here, have expressed concerns that if you cannot keep a constant 12 volts to these GM style ignition modules, which is in this distributor, that it'll have a tendency to burn up this module. And being the old Dodge trucks that we all know and love so well, there's always a concern with the connections at the firewall connections. And people who have done this mod before me strongly suggest that you wire in a relay to supply constant 12 volts to the actual distributor. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. This here is just a standard ISO relay. It's a 30 amp. This is a single pole double throw relay. I can't remember what I paid for these. I bought a lot of 5 of them from another company off of eBay when I did my headlight relay modification. And they've worked out real well for me. I'm sure that these relays, this particular relay, is going to work real good for this application I got going on here. So that's just a list, a short rundown of the parts that I decided to use and go with. Let me rattle you guys off some prices here in case you're interested in doing this particular mod. $54.50 for the distributor. That included the shipping. $28.49 for the coil. That included the shipping. The coil comes with a 1-year warranty from Speedmaster. Lifetime warranty on the distributor, 1-year warranty on the coil. The plug wires come from Summit Racing. $41.92. I can't even remember if there's even a warranty on this or not. Maybe 90 days at the most. I'm not sure. And then $5 or so for the relay. So there you go. This is what I've decided to do with my project. Just so you guys have a visual reference of what to look for if you guys decide to do this mod, you know, on your own project. Well, that's it for now, and we'll see you guys later. Okay, so here we are. I just got done wiring up, or making my wires the length I needed them for the application on my truck. And basically what I did is I figured out where I was going to mount the coil on my truck. Figured out where the, you know, we all know where the distributor goes. And come to the conclusion that I had to add 36 inches of wire so I can put stuff where I wanted to mount it. Now, when this distributor comes from Skip White, it'll have 2 terminals on it. One will be a ring terminal and the other one will be a female spade connector. What I did is simply cut the wires, you know, staggered the cuts, and spliced in 14 gauge wires. Everything here is crimped with a non-insulated butt connector. It's crimped, soldered, 1 wrap of electrical tape, and then double layered shrink wrapped. Now, on my particular application, I decided to shrink wrap the wires together just so they look neat. You don't have to do that. If you guys choose to do that in your application, be advised that there's a piece of plastic on these wires that come from Skip White. And originally I thought that that was a piece of shrink wrap, but it's not. As soon as you go to put the heat to it, it just burns up. So if you want to shrink wrap your wires together, you know, make it look a little better, you have to take that garbage off and then do it like this here. Now we come down here to this end, and of course, you know, I soldered on 2 ring terminals which will mount to the coil. And the original wires coming off of the distributor were red and black. The red wire in this application is the positive wire from the distributor. The white wire represents the negative, the ground wire. And simply this will wire up. The red wire will go to the positive side. The white wire will go to the negative side of the coil. Here is the wiring diagram I got with the distributor. What come from Skip White. It pretty much says a lot of things I just said. But in addition to the two wires from the distributor going to the coil, you also have to add in a wire from your keyed source, your ignition switch, to the positive side of the coil. No big deal there if you choose to wire it that way. A lot of the forums I read before I started doing this suggested wiring in a relay to power the coil, and in turn the distributor. Well, okay, I'm not against doing that, and so you know, I figured out where I was going to mount my relay on the truck and figured out how long I needed to make my wires, and that's what we got going on here. Now when you get these relays, if you choose to do a relay, I truly don't know if all the wirings are the same, but basically this is a standard ISO relay. Got these off of eBay. They've worked very well in other applications that I've done, and we'll talk about how we're wiring this up here. When you pull that wire and harness off of the bottom of that relay and you flip it up, you're going to see some numbers of each terminal. Now, I hope you guys can see this. I'll keep it steady as best I can. But you're going to have terminal 30, terminal 86, terminal 85, terminal 87, and 87A. In coordination with the wiring, yellow is terminal 30, white is 86, black is 85, blue is 87, and red is 87A. And what that relates to what these wires go to is terminal 30, the yellow wire, is the power in. This will be the power coming from the battery. Terminal 86, the white wire, is your trigger wire. Now in this application, our trigger wire is going to be our keyed source coming from the ignition switch. And once I get around to ripping the ballast resistor off of the truck, I'm going to find out which one of those wires is the keyed ignition switch source, and then I'll butt solder the white wire, terminal 86, into that particular wire. Wire 85, or terminal 85, the black wire, is a ground, and that's just the ground for the relay itself. So the relay itself will work. 87, blue wire, this goes to whatever device you're going to power, which in our case is the coil. And then 87A, red wire, goes to another device. We don't particularly need two power wires going to the device, so I just simply take the red wire and remove it. And that's why this dealio over here has 4 and this one over here has 5. I removed the red wire, terminal 87A, because we just don't need it for this application. Now, as always, you know, blah blah blah, these are butt connectors where I've added this wire. Everything's been crimped, soldered, one wrap of electrical tape, and double shrink wrapped. This stuff here, this is just a red shrink wrapping. These wires here are actually white in color, and I just put these red shrink wrap on there for color coordination because they are a power wire. This one here is going to come from the battery, and this one here is going to go to the positive side of the coil. This here black wire, of course, is going to be the ground. That'll mount to a ground stud that I have mounted on the fender. That also ties in a bunch of other ground studs that goes to the battery. And then the white wire, of course, will be the trigger wire going to the keyed on source once I get the ballast resistor all ripped out. So that's what I'm doing with my project. That's how it's coming along so far. And I hope that all this information is beneficial to people out there, and hopefully to me once my memory starts fading in the future. We'll see you guys later, and goodbye. Okay, so here we are continuing on with the HEI conversion. And as you can see, I pretty much got everything taken off of the truck. I've got the plugs removed. I've got the distributor pulled out. I removed the ballast resistor and the ECU, or the ECM. And I also went ahead and split the wiring harness that had all the wires going from the ECM over to the distributor, and simply removed all that wiring and then re-wrapped the wires back up. You know, this here is the old coil. Obviously that's gone. The ECM, that's going to be gone. Distributor's going to be gone. Ballast resistor, gone. I'm putting in new spark plugs. These here are the old ones. And this here is the wiring that I simply removed from the truck. Now, this is one of the plugs that went to the ballast resistor. It's got two red wires. The other plug that went to the ballast resistor has two orange wires and a green wire. The one with the two red wires comes into a welded splice. This is a factory welded splice. And this is where you pick up your keyed on source or your trigger wire that will go to your relays. And all I did basically was where that welded splice is, I just took a pair of line cutters and just chopped it off in the middle. Now, as we progress, I'll cut all this out and I'll solder everything back up. Once I get my trigger wire feeding into this, I'll just wrap them all up, solder them up, and then cap it off. But as for now, that's where we're at. Everything's off, and ready to start putting stuff back on. Okay, so here we are trying to get the distributor in, the new HEI distributor, into the 318 on my 77 Dodge. And things are a little different here, so let's talk about this. As you can see from the old distributor, the rotor button, when I pulled this out, I set everything, I set the number 1 cylinder to top dead center, and according to the book, the number 1 tower, okay, should be pointing straight towards the engine. And when I set it to the number 1 cylinder and I pulled the cap off of the original distributor, it was pointing straight towards the front of the engine. But as you can see, the relationship of the tab here that would go into the rod that is being driven by the oil pump, that's pretty much straight. And the rotor is pointing straight. I mean, it's off by a few degrees, but nowhere near what we have going on here. With the new distributor, if you was to orient the tab in the same position, you can come down and clearly see that the rotor is not pointing straight, or would be pointing to the front of the engine. It's pointing off to an angle. Now, to me, this appears to be off 1 tower. If this was sitting in the vehicle, and if this tower here was pointing straight towards the front of the engine, it appears to me that the rotor button is pointing somewhere in this area. I'm not overly concerned with that. I'm not happy about it, but I'm sure I can just move all the spark plug wires counterclockwise 1 notch and make up for it. I do not know if this is by design. Maybe when they built this distributor, they wanted this to sit, you know, cockeyed in there a little bit for clearance issues or whatever. I don't know, but I'm not overly concerned with that at this time, because I'm pretty sure I can just move everything around when I put the plug wires on to compensate for that. However, that's only one of the problems. One of the other problems I ran into is when I went and mounted this shaft in. This flange here is where your locking ring goes to clamp down on the distributor. And on the bottom of that flange, you know, it should sit on the top of the block. But this shaft appeared to be too long and wasn't allowing the distributor to seat down all the way. Now it's seated down to a point to where the seal would have sealed it up, the O-ring would have sealed it up. I don't think I would have had an issue with a bunch of oil gushing out of the top of the distributor, but little stuff like that just bugs me. So I decided to start shaving off the bottom of this shaft to custom fit this distributor into my particular motor. Now, when I started, you know, and I used a dial caliper, I started out measuring that shaft at 2 inches 570 thousandths. I took it down to 2 inches 513 thousandths. I could still stick a 12,000 shim in there. Didn't care for it. Right now I've got her down to 2 inches 460 thousandths. That's almost 100 thousandths that I've shaved off this end. You know, that should be plenty. But I'll let you guys know how I make out on that deal. We'll see you guys later. Okay, so here we are. I got the distributor in, and I put it in the same way the old one came out. The vacuum bell is pointing straight along the firewall on the passenger side. The bottom of the block, it's important that you make sure that's all cleaned up before you put your distributor down in there, especially before you start doing any filing to custom fit that shaft. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, make sure that's all cleaned up before you start fitting stuff down in there. But as we can see, the distributor's in. It does lock up. It's got good engagement. It's got about 170 thousandths of depth where the bottom of the distributor goes into the slot for the oil pump. And I'll take you over there and show you that's about what I had before. So right now I'm pretty happy with everything, with the exception of right now, you know, it's at top dead center, the #1 cylinder, and the rotor is not pointing straight forward like it says it's supposed to in the book. It appears to be off one tower. Like I said, I don't think that's a big concern. I'll just, you know, put the wires on differently and compensate for that. But right now, that's the way it is. Another thing to note, because of that control module they got on the back of that distributor, you can't get the distributor wrench in from the back to tighten up the lockdown bolt. You have to use a distributor wrench, 1/2 inch, to take the old distributor out, because it won't give you enough room to get in there with a universal and a 1/2 inch socket. But when you go to put this distributor in, you can't use the distributor wrench because of that module, but because of how this is designed, you've got enough room to come in through here with a 1/2 inch socket and a universal to tighten up that bolt. So that's something to keep in mind. Now you can see the wear mark there where it was wearing before, and I measured when I put it in. I got 170 thousandths, and just by judging the wear mark, pretty close to what it was before. So I'm confident that we're going to be good to go there. And like I was explaining, this here's the distributor wrench that I had to use to take the old one out. This here's the get-up that I used to put the new one in. 1/2 inch, universal, 3-inch extension, and another extension. So far everything's going good, and I'll keep you posted. Okay, so here we are at the end of my HEI conversion project. As you can see, I got everything installed. Let's go over a few things here. First, if you notice the control module on the bottom of the distributor, I don't know if they originally intended these to sit on this particular orientation, but I decided to put mine in this way because with the control module in the back, you still got room to adjust for your advance, but it's only about that much of a gap, and which is fine, I suppose. But I do a lot of plowing with this truck, and when you plow, you know, you hit stuff and things get moved, and just a matter of time before the cab comes forward or whatnot and creams out the distributor, or you never know what's going to happen. So I just decided to rotate it 90 degrees and install it in this orientation. Now to do that, you can see back there, that's my oil pressure sending unit hiding behind those wires. I had to raise my oil pressure sending unit so I'd be able to get room in there to move it. So I had to do a little bit of customizing there for my particular application. You probably won't have to go through all that in your application. Like I say, the distributor fits right down in there, even with the oil pressure bell down there. I just decided to do it this way to give myself more room. Try and give you guys a little close up there. Now, the spark plugs, I put those in. I've got those gapped at 50 thousandths. They're auto lights. Standard copper core plugs, nothing special. They're not platinum. I got them gapped at 50 thousandths. Some guys say, well, that's a pretty big gap. Well, that's probably sort of kind of true, maybe, depending. But this truck here only sees about 4,000 miles a year, 4,000 or 5,000 miles a year. So I'm not overly concerned about it, wearing the electrode too much or, burning up the cap. If I was putting on a lot of miles, maybe I'd be more concerned about it, but this truck just doesn't see that kind of use. So that's what I did on my application. Over here you can see, I got the new E-core coil mounted and wired in. These here are the relays that I put in for the to power the coil and the distributor. Now I really would have liked to went with one relay, but I couldn't find a power source that would give me 12 volt power in both the run cycle and the start cycle. These old Dodge M880s, and probably the same way if you're working on a 77 Dodge, I don't know why they wired some of this stuff the way they did, but I could not find a power source that was key on, start, and then run. I couldn't find a power source like that out here. I couldn't find one in the truck. So I just simply wired in two circuits, one for run. When the key's in the run position, it'll go through this particular relay. And when the key's in the start position, it'll run through this particular relay. No big deal. Of course, they're all wired in to positive. Got both of them wired in to the positive side of the coil. And for those of you who are trying to figure out where to pick up the wires for that, this here used to be the welded splice. Had a couple other wires to it that I eliminated when I took out the ECU unit. 3 red wires and then my trigger wire. And then, that comes out of this second plug here. That's first one, second one. Comes out of there, and that would be the second port on the bottom of the left. And this is the power that comes from the ignition switch when it's in the run cycle. Well, this wire right here, which is in the second plug, left hand side, all the way down at the bottom, This is where I tapped into the power source for the start position. Originally there were 2 orange wires that came out of here and went into the wiring harness into the ECU. But you know, I done away with all that wiring, so this is where I picked it up on my particular unit. Had the truck out, you know, I've got it timed at 10 degrees before top dead center and 750 RPM. Truck runs good. It starts 10 times better than it used to. Has a little bit more power on the low end, but you know, nothing to write home about. But it seems like it's just breathing better, you know, it seems like it's just running smoother at an idle. I'm real happy about that. And you know, so for the 54 bucks that you know, I got into the distributor or whatever it was, you know, maybe 100 bucks into everything, I forget. To me it was well worth the upgrade. The only real down thing that, you know, and it's not even really a down thing, I wish I could have ran everything through one relay just for simplicity issues, but oh well, what can you do? But other than that, this is how my mod went. Pretty straightforward, and I wish you guys the best of luck in your mod if you choose to do this on your vehicle. Well, that's it for now, and as always, have a nice day.